The main issue and challenge with sugar, and the reason you want to keep your added sugars low, is because...
Okay, so first question. This one's fun. Why is it that people say when you eat a lot of sugar... What's happening?
No, just keep talking.
Okay. When you eat a lot of sugar, your body burns sugar before it burns fat, so you don't lose weight. But they also say it doesn't matter what you eat as long as you're in a calorie deficit. And they elaborate. It says, well, that's not important. But then they mentioned posting on a different subreddit, which is irrelevant.
They elaborate, but who cares?
They do elaborate, and it's relevant. But anyway, they said people say there's some extra science to weight loss, which is true, beyond CICO, calories in, calories out. Saying if you consume too much sugar, your body will burn that off instead of fat and you won't lose weight. However, I've also heard forever that it doesn't actually matter what you eat for weight loss, not for health, as long as you're in a calorie deficit, which is true. Like if someone ate 1,500 calories of only ultra processed sugary crap while their TDE was 2,000, will they lose weight? ... question mark. Thoughts?
Yes, but less efficiently than, well, to just answer the end part, yes, but less efficiently than somebody who could be at a smaller deficit, like say they were at 1,800 and their expenditure was 2,000 and they were eating clean as all hell. Like, and like kind of like you said before we started recording, it's like, yes, they're probably both technically on like a just molecular level at the same deficit if they're losing the same weight, but that's because person B's metabolism is firing so much more optimally because it doesn't have to sift through all the shit of sugar and processed, whatever kind of processed things we are, whether that's processed carbs or just, processed meats, whatever it may be. So like not all calorie deficits are created equal. That's why the calorie deficit does need to occur, but if you're eating it from quality, your metabolism is going to be so much more optimal. And in addition to that, you're doing it in a way that's healthy and actually sustainable. And so like you're actually getting all the vitamins and nutrients and everything you need to be. Whereas like you can do like lose the weight dirty in a sense, but if you lose it in a clean way, so many jokes.
Dirty.
Lose it in a clean way, it's gonna stay off. It's much more likely to stay off, and you don't have to work as hard in terms of like your exercise and whatnot, and you can enjoy your life while you're losing the weight you want to lose. So just to answer that end part, which I feel like there's gonna be a million people who are saying, no, it is what it is. It's like, okay.
I mean, it is what it is, but there's like work smarter, not harder is essentially what we're getting at here.
There's no nuance anymore in the world. So there's that, and then what was the original one before I go off on it?
The original.
Oh, this is sugar. Okay.
Sugar before fat.
Yeah, sugar needed to burn before fat. So sugar is not a fuel source. Like our body has 3 macronutrients: carbs, fats, and protein. Really, carbs and fats are our fuel sources. Protein can be utilized as a fuel source, but that isn't like when all the carbs and fats have been totally depleted. So like that's like marathon runners at the end of a marathon. They might be pulling from protein. So not really. So we really have 2 main fuel sources. Sugar gets broken down into carbs, and then carbs are our body's ideal and primary preferred fuel source for like quick energy. Fats are long energy, they burn slower. So that must be where that came from, of like the body has to burn sugar before it can then get to the fat, I guess. But
I remember hearing that where it's just like, because they take this snippet of you burn carbs first, like when you start doing exercise, and they take that snippet and they think
just
that
apply it to sugar.
Yeah, because there is some knowledge there that sugar becomes fat, so they just assume that like all the time that means you're only going to burn the carbs. That's partly where the like low carb diets come from, is that little snippet of science, and they ignored all the other stuff.
So yeah, there's not like, it's like there's a half truth to it, I guess, but like sugar's not a fuel source, carbs and fats are. So not really true, but then like that's not really accurate either, because we could just throw someone straight into steady state cardio, and when we're doing that, our body is utilizing fat as its primary fuel source. So it's like, there's just so much nuance that it doesn't cover. So the main issue, because we always do and talk about a million different things. The main issue and challenge with sugar, and the reason you want to keep your added sugars low, is because how it can affect your insulin. So when we intake too much added sugars, and I'm specifically specifying added sugars because if it's sugars coming from a natural source like fruit, it's fine. Is it sugars in your diet? Yes. And if you have any kind of health condition to where it doesn't matter what the source of the sugar is, you need to watch it, then yes, it's fair. You might need to watch your fruit. But for
general
the normal day-to-day person, like there's the whole narrative of like fruit is bad because it's got sugar. It's like that's total crap. Like it's naturally occurring sugar. That's a clean source of carbs. Like you should eat fruit over like potato chips all day, every day. It's not even a question.
Well, even people that have like a diagnosed insulin resistance issue are allowed to eat fruit. They just are only supposed to avoid very high sugar, so high glycemic index fruits, which I think includes like pineapple, mango, and a couple. It's not even all the fruits.
Exactly. Like, it's extreme cases, but yeah. So that's the reason sugar can kind of upend your weight loss goals or just your general health goals is added sugars specifically. Because it can create a spike in your insulin and then eventually create an insulin resistance. And the reason that can affect weight loss that can affect weight loss because it is going to really hamper your body's metabolism and ability to burn fat in a nutshell. So that's why added sugars, like any good weight loss program or some like philosophies to follow, is like clean carb sources. Carbs aren't bad. It's just your sources of carbs, and trying to keep your added sugars low, or just avoid them entirely. But you can get away with a very small amount day to day and still lose weight consistently. It's when eating candy and so on and anything with added sugars in it, so you can read your labels. If there's sugar, make sure it's like there could be 5 to 10 grams of sugar per serving of something, but if it's 0 added sugars, that would be okay.
Yeah, much
better than something like there's a lot of yogurts that come off very healthy, but then you look at it and there's like 30 grams of added sugars, and there's other brands that are 0, so you want to opt for that. So that's the nutshell of like what they mean by like you want to avoid the sugar, and just kind of like calorie deficit as a whole, and why like a cleaner deficit is always going to be more ideal than
it's going to feel better.
Right. Yeah, and just do a week of both and see how you feel.
Right.
Do a week of eat a Big Mac meal a day, because that's what, like 1,200 calories?
I'm sure, something like
that.
Okay,
only eat that. Split it up throughout your day you want. And now go eat 1,200 calories or 1,500 calories. You should be eating 1,200 calories. But just to get to a deficit, say your expenditure is 1,500, just because this is the extreme examples out there. It's like, have your expenditure be 1,500, eat a Big Mac meal. Sure, you'll be at a deficit and you'll lose some weight. You're going to feel like ass. You're going to hate yourself. You're going to feel like ass. Now, eat 1,200 of, chicken breast and vegetables and fruits and clean carb sources, and you're going to feel unbelievable. Yeah. And you're probably going to lose more weight. So.
Yeah. And that's also like that kind of stuff is what makes people kind of fall off, is that like they go the miserable route, and of course you don't want to do that. And then the only other things that I wanted to, I don't have it pulled up yet. The other things that I wanted to just kind of really quickly touch on is that one, when we say like clean carbs, that doesn't mean like no bread, obviously. That just means like not enriched, ultra processed.
Minimally processed.
So that's what, like, bread is very good for you. Like, as long as you don't have like a gluten issue, bread is very good for you. And then just because I kind of wanted to put a little bow on like the understanding of where things come from, because I feel like when I'm talking to my clients, that always helps them. The reason that belief exists, that if you eat sugar, you're only going to burn sugar, is because when you start exercise, like moderate to high intensity exercise, carbs are the form in which we are like, that's the form that we use as fuel. So when you first start exercise, that is the most accessible and it's super quick fuel. It doesn't have to be processed in any other way for you to use it. So when we start running quickly, like not a walk, but like doing a run or higher intensity lifting or things like that, you're using carbs initially at that point. But when you're going on a walk or you're just all of your daily movement, that is fats. So I think that that's where that kind of comes from, is like if you eat a lot of sugar, all you're going to burn in your workout is that sugar, and your body will never burn the fat. But that's not really how that works. It's just like that initial point of movement, your body is burning carbs for a second. But that doesn't mean if you eat too many of them, the fat's just never going to go anywhere. That's not how that works. And the other thing, to just kind of make it clear why all of this matters in terms of like why it works for someone can be in a 300 calorie deficit and lose the same amount of weight as someone that's in a 500 calorie deficit on paper, is because 10% of our calorie burn every day is from just keeping us alive internally. So making sure our heart is pumping, our digestion, all of our vital functions, well, that's actually more than 10% if you include all that. But still, a large portion of our daily calorie expenditure is just keeping our organs moving. So if they're working really well and they're working very efficiently and you're digesting a lot of food and your body is doing what it's supposed to, that amount of expenditure ramps up. And then if you have more muscle mass, it ramps up even further. So that's why like more optimally balanced nutrition helps you burn more calories internally, even if on paper you're only in like a 100
your digestive
calorie
system. You're actually going to pass on what you don't need.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be backed up like the connector.
Yeah.
Crap every day.
Yeah. So that's why like that kind of stuff works. It is still like you're still creating a calorie deficit. You're just creating it in a less like manual way, essentially. Okay. Anything else on that one? That was all I
I'm
wanted.
annoyed with people. Let's move on.
Okay.
All right. Is there any way to speed up PCOS weight loss? So I'm trying so hard going to the gym plus keto, and I've been doing that for 4 whole months and lost 12 kilograms. That's awesome. But then the weight loss stopped. For the past month, I haven't lost any weight at all. I'm miserable eating vegetables, meat, and eggs all the time, and I don't even lose much weight. I cheated for 3 days and gained back 2 kilograms even. Do I need to do intermittent fasting? Take medication? I'm not on any medication at all right now. Exercise even more. I'm just tired. Why does it have to be so hard? I lost a bunch of weight and it just stopped. But I'm still 20 kilograms away from my goal weight. Before I kind of let you go, like, you were on the right path.
The cheat thing tells me that maybe she was being really
a
strict
little
on herself.
strict. Yeah, I would say it sounds like you kind of like those were probably you got after it for 3 days, but like when someone
only 2 kilograms.
2 kilograms, so that's like 4.5 pounds.
Yeah, she has something like that.
When we see those like very acute or like very like within like a day of like, oh my god, I gained 3 pounds in a day or over the weekend or like in 3 days, it's like that is probably you didn't actually put on weight that's really stuck, and it's going to be as hard as losing all the weight you have to this point. If they lost 12 kilograms, like 25 pounds, maybe a little more.
In how many months?
4 months. So
that's over a pound a week, right? I think that's like 1.25.
Pound and a half a week.
Okay,
yeah.
Which is what we usually consider like
pound a week.
Typically comfy rate of weight loss.
That's like on the higher end. If you have PCOS, that is like
if you have PCOS, that is spectacular.
If you didn't have any kind of condition, like a pound and a half a week, anybody, regardless of age, anything, like should be thrilled with. If you have PCOS, that is like incredible.
Yeah.
But I didn't finish my thought. Those like couple kilograms they put on after getting after it for 3 days, like those will come right back off. That is like surface level, probably some water weight,
water retention.
There's probably lots of salty stuff, so probably sodium's really spiked, so that's probably inflated one. But even at say they like 1.5 kilograms, that is going to come right back off much faster than like deep rooted fat that's that's really made a home for itself.
Yeah. So
it's not the same, and it's easy to kind of look at it all the same. So like just to kind of quell this person's concerns, but. I think you're about to go into like the reason they probably felt like they had to cheat for 3 days, which we don't really like to say, but it's because they're probably a little overly strict, and then they had their kind of yo-yo back day. Yeah. Because they were probably a little miserable, which they actually did straight up say, I'm miserably eating vegetables, meat, and eggs all the time. That was for the month that it kind of stopped. So. Okay. Initial thoughts.
So yeah. They definitely don't sound like they actually gained back any weight. Because, like, to put that in perspective, so 4 pounds, that's 4 times 3. That's like 1,200, like 1,500 calories-ish worth of weight. So the chances of them eating 1,500 calories or 15,000 calories, sorry, over the course of 3 days, on top of what their normal maintenance would be, that's them averaging. Like for them to do that, that would mean they'd have to be consuming probably 4,000 plus calories every single day for 3 days. It is not impossible, but it's not as likely as people think it is. So that like logic tells us like it is certainly possible that they gain like a pound, maybe 2, but that's not not the end of the world. They've still made progress. Weight loss is never linear. It's never going to be. There's always going to be up and downs. That is even more true if you are female, meaning like primarily female hormones, or if you have PCOS or any other hormonal conditions. Weight loss is going to be very up and down. So we already kind of touched on the like weight loss with PCOS is hard. It is harder than it is just like any medical condition. It's going to be harder because there's just more obstacles.
I was gonna say like, and just like 4 months they were doing great, and then they had a month where it kind of stopped. It's like that could be like just outside of having PCOS. That could be just like, was this past month a more stressful month?
Right.
Like, was it a crazy month of work? Anything in your personal life going on? If so, anything's more stressful is going to spike cortisol, which is your stress hormone. Anything hormonal is just going to be touchier, like you said, if you have PCOS.
Yeah.
So that is going to have more of an effect, but it could also just be as simple as like you've hit like a benchmark in your weight loss, and your body's sticking point has kind of moved. And so like that is a totally normal part of the weight loss journey. It's like you'll lose, and then you're like, oh, what the heck? And then it will kind of get going again. You might have to make little tweaks in your nutrition or maybe your exercise. And that's not your, like you have to keep your body confused, as the old bro science says. It's like your body has just changed, your metabolism has shifted a bit, and so you might have to get, your deficit might have to be just a touch bigger now, because you've gotten off a lot of that surface level fat perhaps, and now we're kind of getting to the stuff that had its roots more more so, and that might take a touch bigger deficit, but all of your actions in place are probably sound. Like you don't lose 25 pounds on accident. So.
And then so the other thing, so the first thing I'm going to kind of just go in the order they mentioned it. They mentioned they're going to the gym. They didn't mention exactly what they're doing, so they may already be doing this, but I like to point this out because I have several clients now, and like many more over the years that I've worked with, that have PCOS, or in the case of one of my clients, what her and her doctor call like pseudo PCOS, meaning not enough symptoms to have a diagnosis, but all the symptoms that actually make weight loss slower, so like insulin resistance, hormonal issues, things like that. So anyone with PCOS or anywhere near having PCOS, going to the gym should be very focused on a much heavier lifting kind of structure. Heavy does not need to mean like overload yourself. It just needs to mean like heavy for you. So people with PCOS tend to respond best to things more in the strength and power realm because of the impact that has on estrogen and testosterone. It helps to kind of balance out those hormones a little bit and regulate your body. And it also, of course, you build some muscle, and that helps a little bit. But PCOS people do best with that heavier lifting style. So that's going to be at least 1 or 2 of your exercises should be in the like 6 reps or below realm. So that's like very heavy weight for you and longer rest times. And then the rest should kind of be in the 6 to, I usually prefer to say 10, because above that we're kind of on the cusp of like muscle building and endurance. So in that more kind of like bodybuilder kind of rep range, because that goes so far to help with balancing out your hormones. So that's one thing. If that's not what she's already doing, heavier lifting should be a big part of it. And then in terms of cardio, that kind of power cardio. So like sprint cardio rather than just steady state walking or hours on the treadmill, which is what most people think of as like weight loss cardio. So more power focused in the gym. And then she also mentions keto. And there's a lot of different variances on keto now, but typically when I think of keto, it's usually no grains, no carbs other than veggies. And they mention like they're sick of like veggies, meat, and eggs. So I'm assuming that means they're not taking in any grains. So kind of like what we were talking about before, you don't have to cut out carbs. You just need to balance your insulin and your sugar intake. So my client now that's dealing with this, we just have her on a low GI diet. Hers is like 80% of her meals need to be low GI because, again, she doesn't have a true PCOS diagnosis. She just has some insulin issues. So it's a little bit less intense for her. If you truly have PCOS, you should be on a low GI diet, which means most fruit is fine. There's a handful of fruits that you would want to avoid. You can literally type in any food name into Google with the letters GI or glycemic index next to it, and you'll get a number. Aim to stay below 55 on the glycemic index scale, and that's a low GI food.
Berries!
Berries? What about berries?
They're low GI.
Oh, yeah, berries are low GI.
All of them.
All berries are low GI. So, yes, eat berries. And so that's the other thing is like low GI rather than keto. That's probably what made her have that kind of like rebound experience. Is she was keto, cutting out all carbs, and that sucks. And you're going to be miserable, and it's just too intense. The next thing she touches on, which in my opinion is the most risky thing that she mentions, is does she need to do intermittent fasting? As a general rule, intermittent fasting is not ideal for most women, only because our hormones respond worse to being hungry than male hormones do, which are the same hormones, but the distributions. So we just have a worse response to hunger. So most women are not safe doing intermittent fasting, or not for a long time.
Especially if you're planning to be pregnant, are pregnant. Mm-hmm. Definitely if you're pregnant, do not fast, or even pretty recently post.
Yeah. And it's partly because like there's social reasons that I'm not going to get into as to why it's not a good idea for most women. But then there's also the hormonal factor, because even if it is just too common for women to not even realize that we have something going on with our hormones, because there's just not enough going on in medicine. So it's just, for most women, intermittent fasting is just not the right choice. That is especially true if you have anything that is affecting your hormones, because if you go into that like starvation state, your body is going to start to panic more so than most people, and you are much more likely to go into a state where your body's really holding on tight to that fat, and your metabolism is going to become less optimal. So if you have PCOS or anything going on with your hormones, absolutely avoid intermittent fasting. There are a lot of other ways that you can work on your weight loss without doing the kind of like what I consider more gimmicky styles of like weight loss with like tricks and hacks. Like if you want like a hack to weight loss that applies especially to PCOS, but also to like 90% of people, moderate to low GI foods, like low glycemic index foods, avoid added sugars. That's going to go a long way for the average person with or without hormonal issues going on. So, and she's on a good path. So I don't think she needs to panic. I think she needs to give herself some bread, some 100% whole wheat bread, and I think she'd be fine.
Yeah,
I don't think
she should. She's probably like, there's some like within keto, like there's probably something she could keep from keto, but like full blown keto is what led to like, probably has her like body locking up internally, and then her externally she needed to like go, have a day for 3 days. So probably just like get back to what she was doing for the most part, but like introduce more minimally processed carbs back into her day. She's gonna feel a lot better. Is her rate of weight loss perhaps gonna slow down a bit? Probably. Like she might just only lose a pound a week, which is still amazing for PCOS and anyone, period.
Yeah.
So just kind of like realigning, but like
she should be proud of herself either way, because I have clients that have worked with me for a long time, and it took months and months and months for them to see the scale move at all, like PCOS clients, just because there is such an uphill battle to work through that isn't beyond just changing your habits. It's also like, and a lot of them didn't know they had PCOS before they started working with me, and I sent them to a doctor, but still, it's like it takes a long time with PCOS. So she's accomplished a lot already, and she can just chill out a little bit now. So, yeah. In conclusion, lift some heavy shit, and have a piece of toast.
Don't fast.
I think, and don't fast.
Eat some berries.
Have some whole grain bread, eat some berries, lift some things. It'll all be okay. That is, I think, the solution. The end.
Bye-bye.